Hi, food friends. It is Kevin.
And I'm Ralph back here behind the camera.
That's right. And it's Cavalcade of Food. And here we are for another time. And we're baking today.
What are we going to bake today?
We are going to make, this is a very old recipe, an oatmeal cake.
Oh, you know I love oatmeal.
I know you do. I know you love anything oatmeal, anything oaty. And so this is a cake that has a broiled frosting or broiled top to it, and an oatmeal kind of brown sugary
butterscotchy kind
batter,
of
right?
Yeah, so, I've seen these in old cookbooks.
And that's where it's from. This is an old recipe. So let's get started with a few things. So let's start right now. I've got a cup of oatmeal. Now this is quick oatmeal. You could also use the old-fashioned, but that's what we had on hand, so that's what I'm using. I'm going to take a cup and a quarter of boiling water, and we're going to add that to the oatmeal. Okay?
Okay.
And we're just going to let that hang out and do its thing.
Do its thing, okay.
Okay? So we'll put that on the side. Now, like a lot of cake mixes, we start with our fat. In this case, I've got 1 stick of butter, okay, which is a ½ cup.
Did you take the wrapping off?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I took the wax paper off. And I've got our sugars here. There's a cup of white sugar, and underneath the white sugar is 1 cup packed of brown sugar.
Now, is that the light brown sugar?
Light brown sugar. And you could use dark brown sugar.
So what are we doing now, creaming it?
Now we're creaming it. So
cream ya. So that just means mixing it, right?
Exactly. You want to blend the sugars and the butter together.
Is my mixer going slow, or is that just the way you're supposed to do it?
Well, I'm doing it that way so it doesn't fly all over the place until it kind of gets...
I can smell the oatmeal kind of doing its thing. It smells good. It smells like a nice hot bowl of oatmeal on a morning.
So this is another one of these, just really classic recipes. The butter should be at room temperature, which this is. And we don't have Ralph, we don't have a stand mixer, so we're going to make do with this hand mixer, but I think for this batter... So we've got our brown sugar, white sugar, and stick of butter creamed together. Here's the oatmeal. And remember, we took it and we poured some hot water, and
so
now
it's been sitting for, what, about 10 minutes?
Yeah. About 7 minutes. But that's certainly enough. Now what we're going to do is...
Especially because those are quick oats.
Yeah. Let's get our oatmeal
mix that
mixed
together.
in.
And I see you have the eggs and the vanilla ready to go next.
On standby, right.
It smells like yummy oatmeal cookies.
Yes. Oh, that's nice.
Once again, I wish we had smell-o-vision to share with our friends out there in cooking land.
So you see, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's getting kind of sticky.
Yep, and it's kind of all coming together now. Lumpy. Okay, so we've got our oatmeal in. It's nice and mixed.
Got Miss Carmen McRae in the background.
Thank you. I love her. Miss Carmen McRae. Okay, we're going to take and put in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then let's put in our eggs too. We've got 2 large eggs, room temperature please. Okay.
Very good.
And
blend those up.
Get all this mixed in. So basically we kind of have all of our wet ingredients now together. Give this a good mix.
That makes me think the next step is to mix the dry ingredients.
That's right. And you would be absolutely right about that.
Should we come back to that?
Yep, I'm going to finish doing this, and then we will come back and we'll get our dry ingredients put together, which we're actually going to sift together. All right? So we'll be back in a second. We'll do our dry ingredients and then get them all together and get this cake in the oven.
Oatmeal cake on Cavalcade of Food.
Our wet ingredients are ready. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually sift together our dry ingredients. Okay?
Which are what again?
We've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour here.
Okay.
We're going to get that in the sifter.
Now I have to tell our friends out there that I did not have a sifter. We bought this today because it's something we should have. Everyone should have on hand, and it's.
And there are other things you can use if you don't actually have a sifter.
But I like this because this is
a sieve.
This is something you said that probably goes back a long way ago and is pretty functional and easy to use.
You'll get use out of it.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got our 1.5 cups of flour. We've got a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put in a teaspoon of baking soda. So this is our leavener. Okay. Then we're going to put in a good teaspoon plus, almost a 1.25 teaspoons or 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon.
Now these are probably the kind of ingredients like cinnamon and vanilla that you could modify a touch depending on your own personal taste.
You know, if you wanted to make it more spicy, and then we're just going to sift all this together.
See, I like how this thing works. So you just kind of turn it and we'll show people how it
goes through the screen.
This is all new to me. That's why I still am very fascinated by this device.
Okay.
Cool.
That's all there is to it.
Nice. So the sifting does what?
Well, one, it lightens the flour,
kind of
and in this case, it also mixes the dry ingredients together, the salt and the baking soda and the spice.
Right.
But if you wanted to, you could put nutmeg in here, allspice. You know, those kind of spices sort of go well.
You know, I always find that I don't like oatmeal cookies or things that are too spicy because it takes away from the nice oatmeal-y flavor.
I agree, and I know. So what we're going to do is we're going to gradually add our dry ingredients into our wet, okay? So we'll do it a little at a time here.
So the blender at a low, or the mixer at a low speed?
Yes, because otherwise, you know what's going to happen.
I Love Lucy kind of
Exactly. Otherwise, we got problems. So we'll get this in a little at a time.
This kind of stuff used to scare me so much, but I see how...
We're not scared of nothing.
No, but how you make it look so easy, and you just, you know, one hand holding the mixer, one hand shaking in the dry ingredients. It's like, I think I could do this, but...
You totally could do this.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
The bowl.
So you can see it's thickening up with each addition of our dry ingredients.
Yeah.
We'll put the last of it in now. And then, now that I have a free hand, I'll also, you want to scrape the sides of the bowl and get that in there.
Now, have you pre-greased the pan or the...
Not yet. We're using a 9x13 pan, and we're using a metal pan. Now, my go-to cake pan for 9x13 is a nice Pyrex glass baking dish, 9x13. However, because this has a broiled icing or topping, I'm not using a Pyrex. Pyrex can often crack under a broiler. It's really not good for that. So
Pyrex is good for baking, but not for a stronger heat or a direct heat.
Right. So that's why. That's beautiful.
Does that look good?
That looks great. That looks great. So
I'd lick those mixers if it wasn't raw egg in there.
That wouldn't stop a lot of people. We'll try to get off a little of the extra. And okay, here we go.
You were mentioning Pyrex cooking dishes. Do you find that those cook easier and have a better kind of like for baking and cooking?
Yeah, I love cooking in glass, and it's also easy to clean.
Easy to clean, yeah.
Okay, so here's the pan that we're using. shiny metal 9x13 pan. I've got some baking spray. So you could use just pan, you could grease it and flour it. This actually is an oil and flour combination. So
all in one step, you get both the flour and the butter
and the grease. Okay, so here we go. So now our pan's ready. We've got our batter here.
Nice.
In it goes. We have preheated the oven to 350 degrees. So that's our oven.
So do you think this is going to rise very much?
It will. That's the baking soda's job, is to help this cake rise.
And then when does the topping or the...
After the cake is baked,
it'll
go back in the oven under the broiler.
For the final step?
Yeah, for the final step.
Spatula's come in very handy for getting every last bit of that yumminess, right?
That's right. We don't want to waste any of this yummy oatmeal-y batter. Okay, so again, oven's at 350 degrees. In she goes. We're going to get the kitchen cleaned up and get ready for our topping step when this comes out of the oven. So we'll be back in about 35 minutes. 30 to 35 minutes is about the right time for this cake.
Oh, that looks done.
Doesn't that look good? You can see it's starting to pull away from the center, and it's springing back here.
And I'll tell you, folks, it smells like a giant oatmeal cookie.
I'm going to move this rack up.
For the next step?
Because we're going to put the broiler on. Okay? So we've got our cake. We're just going to leave it there for a minute. Now what we've got to do is get together our topping. And here's what we've got. We've got a half a stick of butter, softened. We've got a cup of brown sugar.
Which is really what creates butterscotch, which I think is almost like alchemy and magical.
And remember, when you're measuring brown sugar, we're always packing the measuring cup. I've got a quarter of a cup of half and half. You could use cream if you have it.
Could you use milk?
You could use milk, but it's nice to have something a little heavier.
Could you use silk?
I wouldn't recommend silk, no. And
So
you always want to use silk and stuff, but... Okay, and then I've got a cup of sweetened, shredded coconut. All right? And we're going to give this a mix.
Or as Kevin sometimes calls it, a zhuzh.
Yep. Get all this together here. So this is our topping.
So this is going to go on top of the old-fashioned oatmeal cake and then be broiled?
Exactly. We're going to spread this on top of our cake, and then we're going to put it under the broiler for just a couple minutes. So, all right. So here we go. Now let's come over to our cake. Now our cake is warm, so
that makes it easier to spread on?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of lay it on here and let the heat of the cake sort of melt that butter and sugar down a little bit.
Oh, this is almost like a little physics lesson or science lesson here.
And then because it'll make it a lot easier to spread.
Can dig it.
That's why you want to do this, you know, after you take the cake out of the oven. Let me get a pot holder. This pan is warm. Okay. See how it's kind of melting on top of it?
I do.
As you see how it's melting on top of the cake, and as it's melting, and I know it. So it looked like it was hard to spread, but
the longer it's on there, the easier
you can see it's really not that hard, and I'm getting it all around the cake.
No, this is good. I'm glad you're explaining that because, yeah, knowing that
give
it was
time.
Knowing that it was the first time we did this one, or that you did this one, I didn't want to have a cavalcade of disaster cake on my hands. But yeah, I can see it really. It almost looks like a German chocolate.
Doesn't
topping.
it? Yes, and it's it's in that kind of in that vein.
The family because of the coconut.
Yeah, the coconut and the butter and the brown sugar. Now I will also say, you know what? When you're doing a recipe,
spreading nicely.
Read the recipe at least twice before starting it. Really have a good idea
That's good
of
advice.
what the steps are.
So that you're not constantly having to go back to the written page, because I find that's what I do a lot. Is I'm thinking I know the recipe, and then I'm messing it up because I'm stopping to go back and reread something. But you're saying if you kind of have a better, like, almost instinctive understanding of it, you won't have to refer to it as much, and it'll be a lot more organic in the baking and the cooking, whatever you're making.
Now we managed to cover the whole thing, didn't we?
Gosh, you're right. We sure did.
Now we're going to put it under the broiler for like 2 to 3 minutes, and we're going to keep an eye on it too. Okay? I'm actually going to leave the oven door open while that thing is broiling.
Now, why is that?
So I can keep an eye on it. There's enough heat there that
it'll do its thing.
Okay, so when we take that out of the broiler, we'll come on back and see the finished product.
And how long is that going to be?
2 to 3 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, our oatmeal cake, it's almost done.
We'll be right back.
Yeah. You see what's going on in there? So that topping is bubbling away under the broiler. And we're going to let it get a little brown.
Oh yeah, look at it. It's just going to town.
And that's the sugar. That's the brown sugar that's actually cooking and caramelizing. Okay?
Wow.
And the coconut is going to toast up. So let's give it another minute.
So we're close.
We're starting to smell it in here. We're starting to smell the caramel. Can you smell it?
I smell like the coconut, toasted coconut smell.
Okay.
Yum, yum. We'll be right back with old-fashioned oatmeal cake on Cavalcade of Food.
Here it comes.
Oh, gosh, it smells really good.
See how that's gotten toasty?
Yeah,
in a few spots. Nice and brown.
Oh, yeah. Now, how long do you have to let it sit for?
Now you have to let it cool completely, okay? And this crust is going to harden, you know what I mean? The sugar will harden up, and it'll just become this nice layer of caramel coconut on the top of that deliciously moist oatmeal cake.
Can't wait.
So we'll dig into it, but it's going to be a while. We got to let this cool completely.
All right.
So there it is. An old-fashioned oatmeal cake, right here on Cavalcade.
Not as hard as you'd think to make,
no,
especially if you have some good music like we had. Lambert.
Yeah, what are we listening to now?
Well, right now Gene Harris, but we had Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, followed by Carmen McRae, and now it's the Gene Harris Trio.
Okay, there's a lot of people ask about the music that we play on Cavalcade.
I know, it started off as so incidental, but now I'm trying to be more aware of it.
Well, very good. So there it is, folks. Old-fashioned oatmeal cake. Thanks for being a part of this one, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Adios.